Do we have any public comment? Oh, do we have the agenda? Well, I've got it on my computer.
I did.
Okay,
I'm a good student.
I think mine is on. Yes.
I blame Tricia for me getting scolded multiple times.
Okay, I believe we have no public comment, so there is no committee response, no duets. And now the first item on our agenda is medical specialty drugs prior authorization. So, missed that, sorry. Thank you. First is approval of minutes. Minutes, okay?
I move, yes.
I'm fine with them too. Okay, minutes are approved. And now we're on to medical specialty drugs, prior authorization, and Bob or someone's going to talk to her about this.
Sure. Yeah, medical specialty drugs every once in a while, and this is becoming more and more frequent as you know we've taken over our own health insurance. The insurance companies want us to act on certain things and make decisions on what can be covered, how it's going to be covered. Medical specialty drugs is one of those decisions that we have to make. And I feel, and I think I speak for Amanda, I don't know if we necessarily want to be the ones making these type of decisions. On this particular issue, medical specialty drugs are a new term of art that's coming across, and they will get more and more sophisticated as drugs eventually in the very near future. Many of them will be tied to your personal genetics. So they will take samples of your genetics and create the drug around them, which is best for you. As you can imagine, the initial cost for those is substantial. What this request is doing, and you'll have some reminiscence of the retiree Medicare issue that we had about pre-authorizations. It will create a pre-authorization procedure where the insurance company will, the doctor will have to get pre-authorization from the insurance company to do this. I have been assured that my conversations with ENV that the following scenario would not happen. My 3-year-old daughter needs a specialty drug. We're at the Cleveland Clinic and she needs it. And I have to wait for even a day, right, to get that drug. So you can imagine not just the angst about that, but also if I've taken time off from work to drive to Cleveland, now we have to wait maybe 1 or 2 days. Do we stay? Is it additional cost? All those things. I've been assured that doesn't happen that way, that these drugs the time frame would not be that short in the sense of the doctor would not prescribe it and then want to have it,
Authorized? Or,
the doctor would not prescribe it and give it the same day, that there's typically a time period where they're having to do things. Yeah.
The management of that is also critical because not every pharmacy can compound and process specialty drugs.
Correct.
There's only a few, and then they have to have a facilitating dispensing pharmacy to do that has to work with them. So it's never a 24-hour turnaround time.
Right. And I think that's what she was trying to get at. Like, no parent would be told your daughter needs this drug and we're waiting for it to be pre-authorized. They'd be told, we want to give this drug to your daughter. It will take a number of days or potentially weeks to get it formulated and here. So in the meantime, they can do the pre-authorization. I don't know. I'm going by what our experts are telling us, and it is an evolving portion of the healthcare industry right now. So I don't know if it'll always be this way. I don't know if it'll work perfectly with bureaucracies, even highly educated doctors and highly principled places. We could be in the situation where where our insurance company is delaying, potentially for the right reasons, what the doctor has prescribed. If we don't do this, the doctor could prescribe it, it might not be covered by the insurance company, and then the employee is potentially liable for hundreds, thousands of dollars worth of drugs.
There's no such thing as an inexpensive specialty drug.
Correct, yeah. I mean, they're just ranges in prices from 20,000 to 400,000 I've seen, but that's
Or a million. Yeah.
The
just
cheapest
read
we've
something.
seen starts at 4,000.
4,000.
The cheapest.
Yeah.
Go back just a little bit, if we could. I still don't quite get what this is. This is an individual
It's for our,
prescribed drug.
yeah, for our active side of the insurance, right? So,
No, for it's the drug itself is based on someone's genetics.
oh, no, it is a range of drugs that are becoming more and more specialized. Some of them will be based on your own genetics. That's in the very near future.
They're formulated, they take your DNA, formulate the drugs to your specific
Okay.
makeup.
But
So that-
these may not be that.
Right, there's a
just
full range. So there's, yeah.
Considered
Okay.
special. And I guess there's a link on this to a list.
Current list, yeah.
Yeah,
Currently.
Not that I know any of them, but.
right.
So I don't know. I think we wanted to start the conversation. Eventually, we have to make a decision now. It could either be that the board ultimately wants to appoint me, Amanda, or some third party that works for us as the decider of these things as they come across.
Mhm.
Or you may want us to come to the board for final decisions. I have no preference myself.
I would recommend we take a step back because putting you in charge of making decisions around medical practices doesn't make good sense to me. And that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, well,
For us.
Yeah,
Putting us in
for us.
charge.
I have concerns about this, I mean, I guess, so you mentioned what Christina, what ENV had to say
Yeah.
about what wouldn't happen. I don't have 100% confidence in that. But I also, wonder what are they saying about, what is the advantage or disadvantage of approving this?
The advantage is to ultimately protect our insurance from doctors who may be too quick to prescribe these novelty drugs, new drugs, specialty drugs, where there's other options that have not been,
Mhm.
and some doctors
And this is for the active side, which means we're actually paying
were paying
because it's
dollar.
self-funded.
Yeah. And we eventually will have to figure out, Chris, you see this at your place of employment. If this becomes the norm, if there's more specialty drugs than there are typical drugs today for all the things it's being treated for, this can be a very expensive item. So we have to figure out how to handle this over the coming months and years.
And help me understand this, and if I'm correct, because there aren't protocols and practices in place, so we're kind of creating it as we go. Well, there aren't many practices and protocols in place as far as the specialty drug application, because usually, from my understanding, the doctor will say, there's this, and this. They'll refer you to the doctor who makes a reference. There are certain specialty drug pharmacologists that do these. And then they have a pharmacy that they work with to do the dispensing, because through the licensing laws, they cannot dispense. That's what I run into in my experience, but this is not so new, but the practices and the applications still aren't concrete yet.
Yeah.
And that's why I say I don't have 100% confidence about, an assurance that something wouldn't happen, because on several occasions, what I have heard when I've probed a situation with insurance where something was denied, or is that staff in a doctor's office has made a mistake. Because they're not thoroughly trained and it's complicated. So it's like, this prior authorization, it's gonna go through staff at a doctor's office.
And we hear this about non-specialty drugs. So imagine anything. Did E&B give us a recommendation of best practices?
Yeah, they feel that this would be a best practice, that it really could protect the district from costs, and from their perspective, this delay that we heard about on the Medicare side is not something that would happen here. But, bureaucracies being what they are,
Yeah.
it could happen. I mean, I don't think we can say it'll never happen or that we won't run across the case, but typically what my understanding after discussing with them is that the procedures are such that you would not have the situation that I thought of in worst case scenario in my head, right, that I've already shared with you. That's not how it happens. There is a delay between a doctor seeing someone, in my example, at the Cleveland Clinic, and then having that drug available to inject or ingest. And that delay, as the pharmacology is being done, is when the pre-authorization can be reviewed. And if there is some other indication that the doctor didn't think of or should have thought of or forgot to think of, or a mistake in the office, that's a potential way to stop it.
And also, you mentioned it, but it's another factor that it protects our employees against, getting a drug that has not been authorized and then the insurance company refusing to pay for it, and then the employees on the hook for it.
Yeah.
So this would be for across all our health plans that the district manages, the administrators' health plans, the bus drivers'
Yes,
health
yes,
plans,
all
the
of-
retirees' health, it
Yep.
would be everybody.
Not the retiree.
Not
All,
the
all
retiree.
of the active plans.
Okay,
So Medicare would be something separate. I think
Okay.
Medicare itself does review, but I can check on that to be sure, Jill,
okay.
but that's my understanding.
So where are we in terms of, so we now become
I
a
think-
bit educated?
Yeah, I
and-
think maybe another, maybe at the next board meeting, just to bring the other members in and, we'll make a decision. I think ultimately there'll be a number of these type of decisions, certain, there's certain procedures and medical devices that are always coming online.
Right.
And what and when and how to cover things, or at some point, what and when to say this is too experimental or too costly potentially to cover is something that we all have to grapple with. So,
Okay.
all right.
So before we go on to, we're talking about staffing and hiring, Jill mentioned that she's been getting some questions about this, opportunity that our retirees have been apprised of to, switch their coverage from Aetna, to, Medicare plus the Hartford supplement. So, Bob, you want to speak to how we're going to handle various and sundry questions?
Yeah, so, in the letter that we sent to all members, we asked them to send questions to us at Ithaca benefits at ICSD.
Uh-huh.
Go on the website, there's a link to it as well. We're collecting questions, they're starting to flow in at a pretty big clip, and some of them are duplication, so we feel the best way is to do an FAQ after we get a number of these, put it on the website, and then at some point mail it to the folks who actually ask the questions. So those who did ask questions will get it both ways, unless we know that they are actively looking at users. And then it'll be on the website too for everyone who just wants to check it out or may have questions and let it know.
Bob, use the microphone.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was over here before.
That reminds me, so the only communication to retirees was a mailer, right? the only direct communication.
And there's a link on the website too.
It's a link on the website,
Yeah.
but like, for instance, my sister, who's a retiree, is out of town until into May. And it occurred to me the other day, oh, she wouldn't get this. And so
And just to be clear,
I sent it-
Medicare retirees, right?
Medicare,
Yeah.
yes, Medicare retiree. She's a Medicare retiree. And so, I don't know what she's done with her mail, but and she's been moving around various places, it's not being forwarded. So I sent her the information. But I'm just wondering if there are other people who are just gonna miss it because they don't get their mail.
I know that WER also has a number of
Okay.
emails and they're generating stuff out to their folks too. So that's, what was that, 150 or something?
Yeah.
Around there,
30 or
and probably word of mouth. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. Hoping folks that are away do the forwarding of the mail.
Right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jill.
Okay, so now
Bullshit.
we will have an update on staffing needs and hiring process.
There we go. Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. All right, recruitment and retention update. So some of these slides here are similar to what I presented at the last HR committee. But I just made some updates to them. One of them being the interview round. So we've started our elementary teacher and special education teacher interviews. And so the first rounds of those have happened. We've had a few applications and been able to move some people forward. And we'll continue to have rounds as we have it as an until filled position. So that's going on. Update on some of the teacher recruitment days. So I went to Buffalo area teacher recruitment day, and that was quite an experience. It was at Niagara Falls Convention Center and full of employers from everywhere. California, North Carolina, Montgomery County, Maryland, where I went, and offering jobs right on the spot, taking New York teachers and offering jobs. There was even a California person walking around saying, "Come to sunny California." I'm like, what is going on?
Sunny,
So-
rainy, what else?
I hope you said Ithaca. It's better than Buffalo.
Yes. It was interesting. So the setup for this recruitment day, and a lot of the teacher recruitment days have been set up this way, is you reach out to the candidates beforehand and invite them to your booth, or, if it's virtual, you invite them to your booth, or you invite them to interview with you. And so they'll sign up. So I had 9 people that signed up, and then there was like a networking time where people would stop by, but those 9 people took up most of the day meeting with them. The limitation to that is that, you're not meeting with all the other people that are in the room. And so I felt very limited to that. Also the accessibility, some employers who did not reach out to candidates, they were just sitting there. So that was interesting. And so that was that experience. I was able to connect with a lot of science majors. We have a lot of science retirements coming up. So about 6 of those 9 were biology, completing their biology or going to be certified in biology at the end of June or so, May. So it was successful nonetheless. That's interesting. Retention, this is the same slide from last time, just keeping it there. Continue to work on all of these items, placement options, certification assistance, networking, events, employee resource, grow our own. We've had, that continues the efforts, moving towards that, and community connections. Staffing need. So again, I've added, so we recently had reading vacancy come that was not on this last time. And again, we've had a few more science retirements. So that's big on our recruitment, in addition to special education and elementary. Sorry.
You're gonna hear science at the high school, we had 7, 6 retired. So science at the high school took a really big hit. You're likely to hear that. Don't get too excited at this point. Ladira's already talked to 7 different science background folks who are interested in applying. It doesn't mean that everything's going to run smoothly or all 7 are coming here or they'll all be certified in the right areas, but we recognize it's just a conflux of people retiring. And it's just the way it is, so. And I think the next slide might be special ed. Is that the special ed slide? All right, so I'll keep this. All right. Oh.
April 1st for everyone to submit transfer requests. And although, that doesn't mean that we will not consider requests after. Currently.
And the retirement list for ITA as of last check was 18, spread across all, all
Yeah.
the whole district. So not terrible. We've had years where it's been quite a bit higher.
Yeah.
I would think that because the retirement incentive that's built into the contract, that we won't receive many more retirements from ITA past the April 1st deadline. Could be a couple stragglers that are making decisions about September of next year or October, depending when they started in the system, but it shouldn't be too much more disruptive from that perspective. And then special ed, I wanted you to be aware of what's happening in special ed. There are, I think, actually about 78 or 9 openings. I may have missed Bell Sherman for a good reason.
78 or 9
Special,
opening?
no, special
Okay.
ed, people who are in
Right.
special ed positions in the
Right.
district. Bell Sherman was missed because they have 0 openings for next year anticipated. Oh, you did. So it is 70. Okay. So that's what we have for the district.
Okay.
Out of those, and I take, don't gasp too loud. There are 25 potential openings, but it's not as dire as it looks at first blush. So below that, I've set forth what's happening. So 3 teachers who we have currently in these positions who are uncertified in special ed will be taking their special ed certification over the summer. We anticipate all 3 passing and we can move forward with that. Okay.
So they're considered openings now,
Because it-
but they're actually
Yeah.
filled by people.
I wanted to give you the
Right.
worst case scenario. Now, some numbers could change. There could be another few special ed folks who decide to, move on or whatever. But as of right now, this is what we're thinking for next year. 3 of the folks are thinking about leaves of absences or extending ones that they're currently on. We don't know for sure yet what that will look like. 2 of them are currently covered by retired teachers, one retired ICSD teacher and one from a nearby district. Both of them, we feel will recommit for next year. They might not, they might decide, I've had enough, but if they recommit, then we can have those two folks in vacancies if needed. Two offers were made, I think either yesterday or today, to two special ed teachers, and we haven't heard the response yet, but we're hopeful that they'll choose to come here. Four of these I put under district control. We're still trying to figure out and they are trying to figure out if we're both good fits for each other. And so, they are under, those decisions primarily are under our control, whether or not to keep moving
Ask them
forward.
that.
So, yeah.
Mhm.
Two folks who are not in special ed programs, but are certified in other areas within New York State, currently holds some positions, and we might ask, so they're doing very well, and we might ask them if necessary. So there's a hierarchy.
Right.
By law, we have to continue to search for certified special ed teachers very diligently, and we will continue to do that. If we get into the situation next year where there are openings and there just simply are no certified special ed teachers that we can find, our next tier would be certified, New York State certified in some other area. And then currently at the secondary level, and again, this isn't something that we endorse as a long-term fix, but it is potentially something that we'll have to look at next year. And currently at the secondary level, 4 vacancies are covered by overages, which means it's split up and divided amongst the remaining teachers.
Right.
And they typically, if it's one class more they teach, they'll get 16.7% increase to their base salary, which is, that's a good chunk of money, but it's also difficult, right? They're working hard. So,
And they are also, though, if you're teaching over, you don't have,
you're missing a prep or sometimes lunch, depending on,
oh, okay, I thought.
or duty.
Or duty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
duty. I'm
that they're
duty.
released from duty.
Yep. So, the 25 potential openings, when you start to subtract some things that we have in the works, is not as shocking as when you see 25 out of 77. But I just wanted you to be aware, because special ed is always, it's in the spotlight.
What's the landscape out there of hiring potential?
I talked to the union president today, the acting union president, and we both looked at each other and had the same conclusion. At some point, it's not about Ithaca, it's not about Trumansburg, it's not about any high school in America. If they don't get more people entering into the college programs for teaching, there is no end to this. And then when you go to recruit, you're up against sunny California, even though they've had 100-year flood, but
Right.
it's
Yeah.
typically sunny there.
Yeah.
And,
Maybe not anymore.
And expensive.
and
And
expensive,
expensive.
yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know what to say about it, but you see in the news, like unbelievable statistics about the drop in enrollment in education programs.
It's
It's
going to
it's
be,
stinking.
it's going to be dire. Maybe next year will be okay, but there has to be some, I'm thinking it's got to be at the federal level at this point, because the numbers are that drastic and that dire. If they can't incentivize young people to go in, or any people to go into teaching, we're all in trouble.
On that happy note.
Yeah, let's. Yeah.
Moving on, because we're not solving that today.
Transition to screening and interview.
Okay.
In this room, my voice doesn't echo. All right, so we have a significant recruiting advantage
in all the work that Dr. Brown and the executives are doing to move us forward. And, you know, those of us who spend time on college campuses, we're even more involved than a lot of the colleges, right? They still have lectures and people sitting in rows, and project-based learning is a what's that. So, Ladir, when you're out there, can you leverage that? Are you finding space to leverage, not that we're unique, but we see our leader getting awards nationally and internationally for the stuff we're doing here. How can you slide that into the conversations to give us a leg up in this environment where we're going to do all we can to capture people's imagination?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely people that see our name on the list of districts and come and say, hey, I wanted to speak to you because I know you all are doing this and this, you know, bring up Dr. Brown and all the things that the district is doing. So there are people that are looking specifically for what kind of district do I want to work at. So there is that leverage.
You might consider taking that learning forward material on the road, though, like having a stack of it right there. So people
Yes.
who don't know can look at it and say, well, this distinguishes them from the competition. Let me now check out Ithaca, right?
Mhm.
You know, learn how tiny we are, but we got advantages. I like to think, right? So that's the first question. The
Mhm.
second question is, can you go back to that, the staffing needs slide for a second? The one right before that one. All right, so the question I have for exec team, those subjects don't necessarily, in my mind, automatically connect to leaning forward. Could you guys walk us through what, I know it's applicable to everything up here, I just can't see it, right? Math is different because we know we're doing the heterogeneous math, but can you explain how leaning forward applies to those categories? Someone brave enough to give it a shot?
Yeah. You're asking how the Learning Forward initiative? Okay.
I would, but I can't see it, so. What are you
Oh.
talking about? What are you referring to?
He's referring to the
Oh.
the staffing needs, where I listed all the vacancies, the positions.
For instance, because I'm trying to understand, like, what do you see as a less obvious subject?
Ooh, technology is right up there. So if you go into some of our technology classrooms, Eldred, you will see the work that we're doing through Learning Forward ICSD come to life. So for example, I'll say there's a co-taught class between one of our art teachers and one of our technology teachers at Ithaca High School. They're both complete rock stars, and they work together to ultimately provide students with opportunities to create artwork that is also functional and meets a purpose that even moves, right? So they're programming and motorizing artwork, and it's focused on student identity work, understanding themselves, their cultural identities, their interests, their intersectional identities. And so kids are creating pieces of artwork, and then I'm essentially motorizing these, right? So then they move, right? So they're attending to the elements of anti-marginalization curriculum through the art standards and the technology standards. Does that help?
This is the HR meeting. I'm sorry, but this is the HR meeting, and so we've got to move on. Not that I don't care about curriculum, but
Uh-oh. There we go.
Over to, oh, is this one? There we go. Does that work? Yes. All right, so as we were talking about the vacancies, just wanted to transition over to being part of the hiring process and what that involves. So we have screening committees and interview committees, which are made up of stakeholders. And so one of the prerequisites for participating in the committees is to attend the hiring process workshop. And so this is just a flyer here about the hiring process workshop that we've put onto Frontline Professional Growth, formerly My Learning Plan, so that people can sign up, be a part of the hiring process. And on this next slide here, I just want to give a bit of an idea of what the workshop is, the things that are covered in the workshop. So I'll share some of the slides that I also share on the workshop. And I have a couple videos that I'll just give you a little clip of the videos as well. So again, the hiring workshops, they're being held monthly or by request. So people can reach out to me and say, hey, I really want to be on this hiring committee. I haven't taken the workshop and I can't make, the scheduled, the next scheduled workshop. So, I'll meet with them by request. They are held in person, or I do also do Zoom virtual meetings. The next workshop is being offered April 12th at 3:30. It's usually an hour long. And during this workshop, I explained the process for screening and hiring in ICSD. So from the moment that we are notified of a vacancy, what the screening entails, how long we can screen, what is the responsibility of the stakeholders that are on the screening committee, and then the same for interviewing ICSD. I, during this workshop, identify the major biases that are often present in the hiring process. And then, hopefully everyone will understand their role in the ICSD hiring process through attending the workshop. And this here, I also did share at the last meeting, but I also shared this in the hiring process workshop to give everyone an idea of, from the time that we post to when we give a job offer, what that process is like. Any questions so far? Okay. This is the agenda for the hiring process workshop. I like to start with talking about the why. And in the next slide, you'll see what the why is. So there's a short video that I'll play just a clip of, just to get everybody centered on why we're doing this. Talk about the biases, policies, so equal employment opportunities, workforce diversity. I have been asked like, hey, don't the two kind of conflict? And, I've had great discussions about access and opportunity, focusing on how are we giving an inclusive and a diverse door to everyone. So that, we are not excluding, but including within this process. Pre-employment inquiries, so, talking about what questions are unlawful and going over that. Did you raise your hand? No, okay. Who are stakeholders? So we talk about that. Structured process. We review the stakeholder manual, and then in terms of confidentiality, I have everyone sign just agreeing that, they're given access to a lot of a person's information, and that be kept confidential, and also that discussions within the committees are kept within those committees. All right, so here's a video that I play when we're talking about the why. And again, I'll just play a clip of this. Ooh, if I can. The audio's not playing.
Hello, and thank you for volunteering to serve on a hiring committee for the Ithaca City School District. We are grateful for your participation and appreciate your time as we take the next few moments to review your vital role in the hiring process. As you watch this video, we ask that you pay special attention both for and how bias plays a role in the hiring process. You may also try to think of life you have.
And I'll just stop it right there. But yeah. And then it goes into, oh, do I need to change it? We interviewed high school students, we interviewed middle school students, and they talk about what they look for in a teacher. And so it's just a good start to the discussion of the hiring process. All right, and bias. So, I like to go over what a bias is. A lot, there's been some people that are like, oh, I never thought of what a bias is. And so it's important to outline, that a bias is impossible not to inherit, exists on a consciousness continuum, involuntary, based on all the characters that, make us who we are. And associations are learned and can be unlearned. And then I go over all the common types of biases. And I'll just skip through these just to not take a lot of time there. So common types of bias. Here's another little video that I like to also show, talks about implicit bias. And again, these videos, they allow for people to really have a conversation on bias, and disarm a lot of people. Jovan, I think I need to. Yeah? Okay. Okay. All right, and I'll just stop that there. So again, had some funny characters, but you know, it's in the start of the workshop, making people feel comfortable to then discuss, you know, ask questions. Questions to ask yourself about hiring bias. So, you know, one of the, it's hard to see implicit bias when it's really been ingrained. But if we can stop and think, okay, could this thought be a bias? Where is it stemming from? I grew up an Army brat, and for the longest time, you know, a man that walked into a building or a cab didn't take it off. I was like, oh, you know, very suspicious of them. And you know, that's a huge bias just from where, you know, my background, what I grew up with in my household. Asking, what does it mean when a candidate is not the right fit? And so having that discussion, are we really asking what is the right fit, or what are the needs of our students? Are my reflections based on the candidate's strengths and wonders related to the skills, knowledge, abilities needed for this position? And it takes a village. And so, you know, talking about what that village is, what are the stakeholders that are involved, and really advocating that people spread the word to have more people involved and at the table for the hiring process. So listed here, I have all of our stakeholders that are sent invitations to provide a representative to our hiring committees. And I love Dr. Shiraki Holly's, you know, it might be your first thought, but don't let it be your last thought. I think I remind myself this every day. That's it. Any questions?
Yeah, so on hiring committees, I think, you know, based on my experience from years ago, but even more recently. So do we always have a parent? You know, it used to be mandated that we would have a parent, a community member, and then representatives from the various bargaining units. So where do we stand now about who definitely is participating in hiring committees?
Yeah, we don't always have all of the stakeholders present. And, you know, that it may vary based on, you know, if we're having rounds of interviews every week, it becomes a little more difficult to get representatives. I feel like even after, you know, during COVID and after COVID, people's availability and what, you know, they're choosing to, you know, spend their time during the day or after work has been limited, but we continue to send out notifications, encourage. It's starting to pick pickup where more people are participating. So to answer your question, we don't always have all representatives, but we definitely, do our best to,
Get a variety.
yeah.
And so I know that things definitely changed during COVID, but there was a time pre-COVID where for elementary openings, there was a first round that was like a group process, rather than individual. Are we doing that anymore? Or, how are the committees and operating at this point in time?
Yeah, so we have a virtual process the first round. We no longer do that gallery
Yeah,
walk
right.
that, that used to happen. Now more so it then turns into a building level. So we move candidates forward that we, the committee has said, okay, these are candidates that we would hire for the district. And then it becomes a, building level.
Yeah,
process.
because so it's now more building based. I mean, there was a time where it was not building based. It's like we have a whole bunch of elementary positions in different buildings and, we hire them not necessarily for a particular building. But it's different now.
Well, we still do, so there's a virtual interviews and there's in-person interviews. I'm sorry, I skipped that part. There's the in-person interviews where we'll have administrators on there. They will then, be hired. But then there's a portion of, okay, how do they get placed in what building? And that's,
But that happens after they've been hired.
Right,
to,
right.
To figure out where they're gonna go.
yes, and they can have, if the building wants to meet with them, but it's not as, big of a interview committee,
Uh-huh.
yes.
More?
Oh, go ahead,
Yeah,
sorry.
I'd just like to, often I'll point out things that don't seem to have made a lot of progress. In this case, I'd like to point out just how far we've come. It's probably been 7 or 8 years since I participated in a hiring process here at the district. And as I recall it, our main training at that time was don't ask people if they're married or if they're pregnant. So it's really congratulations to you and to Bob and everyone else involved that this is a much more educational and much fairer, and it's nice to be a part of it in whatever way. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and even I've participated more or as an observer in recent years, pre-COVID though, or actually right at the beginning of COVID too, where we were still in person, but we were socially distancing in the boardroom. But the whole way that we ask questions and respond has changed. So in the discussion following the interview, we talk about what we noticed, what we wondered, rather than more evaluative questions. And I found that really good. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Go right on.
thank you. All right. So we need to have an exec session. And so we need to at least touch base on the tenure recommendations that are on in our folders to
Oh, okay.
pass on.
Okay.
So that would be to discuss the employment, yeah, you got it.
I motion that we enter into executive session for the purpose discussion regarding proposed pending or
No,
current
we're
litigation
just doing it having
All
to
right.
do with personnel.
for personal matters, discussing employment.
Okay,
That'll work.
That'll work?
Yeah.
We need a second.
oh, yeah,
Oop, second.
okay, all in favor? Okay,
Do we have to? move on?
well. Well, we're back from executive session and,
Wait.
oh, we're back from we're back from executive session. And we will call this meeting to adjournment or something like that. All in favor?
Thank you.
Very much in favor.
Good night.
Good night.